Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Hoosier Homestead. I'm Alex, and you'll probably see our cat pop up every once in a while because he can't stay away. This is Smokey. This is our 5-month-old cat, so he's still a kitten. Anyways, I'm coming back today to do a video book review. I've got a few books I wanted to talk about. A little bit different than what I have been doing in the past on the past few videos, but this is a direction I kind of want to take a few of these videos on this channel. And I think it does tie in with our theme of living a slow life or living slow living, because my wife and I don't watch a whole lot of TV. We get a lot of our entertainment from reading books. And so that is really something that helps slow us down. And so I thought I'd share with you the top books that I currently have on my bookshelf. And I've got 4 books here, well, 5, because 2 of these are the same copy of one book. And so these are the books that I currently have on our bookshelf. This isn't necessarily my top books of all time. A couple of these are. But I also want to say that we typically read our books with our Kindles. So we have with an ebook. We check those out from our local library. There's an app called Libby that our library uses. And so you can check it out, and it goes to you get the ebook copy sent to your Kindle or whatever ebook reader you have, and you get to keep it for 2 or 3 weeks. And so that's nice. And so I usually only buy books if I really like the book. My wife would probably disagree and say that I keep copies of books that I don't necessarily like either or haven't read yet. We got a lot of books on our shelf that I haven't read yet. Anyways, the only time I only typically buy used books at used book sales. Our library does a book sale every once in a while too, or at little free libraries. Our little town has a bunch of those, which I'm very appreciative of. Uh, anyways, the books that I have here are my top books that I currently have physical copies of, and we'll just go ahead and get started. It is a fairly thick list because some of my favorite books are really long books, and I think that kind of goes to show that the longer the book, maybe the better it is. But I've read some pretty good short books. I read a really good one that was like 90 pages this summer, and it had the same depth of character storyline as some of these. So, anyways, we'll start with number 4. So, the fourth best book out of this list is one that I first read just about 2 or 3 years ago. It was first published in 2011, and at the time it was on the top 10 best books on the New York Times Book Review. And that is 11/22/63 by Stephen King. This is not your typical Stephen King book. It has nothing to do with, it's not scary, it's not horror or anything. It's more of a science fiction, historical fiction type of story. It basically follows, you can see JFK slain in Dallas. It's this guy finds or is shown a passageway through this burger joint in his hometown. And if he enters this closet at a certain time of the day, he can go back from 2011 and go back in time to 1961. I forget what the exact date is, but he always goes back to the same date in 1961. And so when he goes back, he can make changes, he can do whatever he wants. But when he comes back through that passageway, it's that same day in 2011. And whatever he did, good or bad, that change has taken effect in the future, in his present day. And if he wants to reset it, if he decides he doesn't like what he did, he can go back through that passageway, and it automatically resets because it goes back to the first time he went through. And it's kind of hard to explain. I think that's why it is like an 800-page book, but it's a really good story. There's a lot of other sub storylines. I think it takes place in Dallas, Texas, because the ultimate point of this story is he's trying to prevent the JFK assassination on 11/22/63. And so just going through, and he tracks JFK's shooter throughout the whole time he's there, and he develops relationships, and it's just it's an interesting take. It's fiction, but it's kind of a cool retelling of that story. So if you're into historical fiction, there's some romance in here, or even just some a little bit of science fiction. This is definitely a book for you, and I would recommend it. Next on the list, I I did a little short a few weeks ago. I read this earlier this summer, and that is East of Eden by John Steinbeck. This is the second or third Steinbeck book I've read, and it is definitely my favorite of his. And basically, it follows these two families in California, the Trasks and the Hamiltons, between the Civil War and like World War I in California, and it's really just the basic battle of good versus evil, and evil people doing their thing and good people counteracting that, and um, it centers around these two brothers, and it's a retelling, so to speak, of the Cain and Abel story in the Book of Genesis, and it's just really interesting how to take a to hear a different perspective of that story. And this is obviously fiction, but it's just an interesting take on that. And again, with any story, I love the character development. That's what I look for it. He seems like a really great writer, and I look forward to reading other books by him. I think my next one that I will probably read is The Grapes of Wrath, which is another book that takes place in California, and it's kind of this journey. And so I like those type of books. You'll probably see I like the books that are these long journeys and these quests. So, anyways, definitely recommend this one. The next one, so this is number 2, I guess, on this list. Second favorite book that I have is a it's a book that I wasn't expecting that I would like, just because based on the genre. It is a Western. It is Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. This takes place right after this, or like 20 years after the Civil War, so 1870s, 1880s. And it starts out in Lonesome Dove, Texas, and it's these two former Texas Rangers, so two Texas law enforcement officers that are now, they own this cattle ranch in Lonesome Dove, and they decide they want to do one final cattle drive from Texas up to however far north they can go. And so it really just follows them and their companions on this journey with all these cows. There's like 3,000 cows that they follow on horseback. And of course, this is 1800s Texas, Kansas, Nebraska. And so you've got cowboys and Indians, and it's a really really interesting story. And even if you don't like westerns, I've never read a western book before, and I really enjoyed this. I think you will too. If you like books, I would recommend this. It did win the Pulitzer Prize in like 1991 or 92, and so that should say something. But definitely recommend this. The last one I've got here is actually, I've got 2 copies of this, and this is my favorite book. Not only a favorite book of all time, but favorite book that um, that is on my shelf currently. And that's why I've got 2 copies. I've kept 2 copies, and I'll show you this one first. So my mom actually got me this one, and this is a really cool. You see the gelding? Is that what it's called? The gold plating, whatever. And it's even got like a little bookmark. That's really neat. Anyways, this is The Stand by Stephen King. This is my favorite book of all time, just for so many reasons. There's so many really neat characters in here that it's such a long book. It's like 1,300 pages, but because of that, you form this relationship with all these characters, and with all their triumphs and tragedies, you feel like you're best friends with them by the end of the book, or enemies with them, because there are some pretty bad people. So the basis of this is there's a plague outbreak that started on like an army base in Texas, and it leaks, and a guy gets out and he spreads this. They call it the super flu. It's this virus, a highly contagious virus that spreads across the whole world, but it starts in Texas. And basically anyone, 99%, 99.8% of the population that catches this disease ends up dying from it within just a couple days, really, a week or so. And so obviously there are some survivors. And so the first third of this book introduces the virus and how it takes shape over the United States. And then the rest of the book, or the second part, focuses on the survivors, and they kind of group up, and they have these dreams where they can, of people telling them where to go or what they need to do to help battle this flu and their new norm, um, because there's only like 3,000 people left in the United States or something like that. It's probably more than that, but there's really just like two groups of people that kind of come together. One group in Boulder, Colorado, the other in Las Vegas, Nevada. And not going to get into any spoilers, but there is this battle of the good group versus the evil group, and who will triumph, and how are they going to rebuild the country, and they kind of build up their own political system. And so it's a really interesting tale of, like, what would you do if there's this flu that plagued the country. I read this in 2020, and so we were going through a plague, obviously, with the coronavirus, and so it was kind of scary reading it in 2020. Not nearly as bad as the book, but still had parallels. This is the copy that I did read in 2020. You can tell it was very well loved because I'd split it in half. Um, Probably my fault, because I like to break the spines of my books. I don't like having a book where I have to like keep it closed. And so this is such a thick book. It's split right in the middle at 600 pages. But that just means it is well loved. So I appreciate you sticking along for this journey. I'm just going to show this one more time. So these are my top, we've got 5 books here. So top 5 favorite books I've got on my bookshelf right now. And these are all great books. And what else? I've been drinking these Waterloos. This one's cherry limeade. Pretty good. There's 0 calories, 0 sugar. It's just sparkling water, naturally flavored, whatever that means. But it tastes good. It's just water. So good stuff. That's all I got. So thanks for watching. Also, make sure you like and subscribe. Forget to say that every time. I don't know if that matters, but something easy you can do. I'd appreciate it. Thanks.